Hey, what's up? Welcome to Left Right Out. I'm back. Let's go ahead and just start off. There's some interesting things that have gone on. When I was away, I noticed something coming from the Ron Paul Institute, which I love Ron Paul. Ron Paul's one of the honest people, one of the greatest, I guess, politicians, men of our time, and did a lot for us in the liberty movement. But anyway, his channel got taken down for momentarily, unexplainably to him, and I think enough protests happened that they reinstated it. YouTube did, which is craziness, because that guy and the people that work with him, all they do is talk about peace or doing individual freedom, just nothing really out there. They challenge the Federal Reserve and challenge people to ask questions of authority, but nothing crazy. It's not like Alex Jones, which you can argue that whether you agree or disagree with him, that guy got canned, and he was the canary in the coal mine for a lot of these fringe, which I loved YouTube for that. Like, I watched YouTube. I remember YouTube back in the day. You get some weird stuff like conspiracy theories things, or maybe you get like just people with good takes on weird things, and it expands your mind. Now, if you can't discern what the truth is, hey, that's on you. But now we got to the point where YouTube has cut all those fringe, and I might be one of them. That's probably why I'm not getting traction on this one, but on Rumble I do okay. But these fringe, or I call them fringe, but just differing opinions are cut out, and now you have in YouTube a lot of, like, I noticed the history channels on there where normally I'd get, watch guys, they would edit their own stuff, come up with some cool theories, talk about the same stuff that maybe like Ancient Aliens is on, but they're not there anymore. Some of the independent journalists aren't there. Now you got CNBC with their own channel on YouTube, and the other alphabet networks, and they're the ones that are getting pushed on there. So YouTube is becoming a pseudo cable company at this point. So I'm just waiting for them to, crack down on some other guys. So who's next? I mean, what's the next? Excuse me, slippery. I don't know why whenever I come on here I got that something in my throat. But anyway, the next person, the slippery slope of, and it's not just on the right. I've heard that there's people on the left that are getting cut out too. So it's just become some corporatist crap that YouTube was not supposed to be. It's supposed to be independent, creators and a forum of interesting thoughts and opinions and maybe discussions. And then, of course, you got the how-to videos that were always awesome. The outdoor people, like a lot of fishing and hunting and camping and living out of all that stuff was cool, And we're losing a lot of that, and it's sad. Sad that it's come to this, that it's being used as a weaponized tool in an information war. But anyway, okay, let's go on to the markets. The markets are down. Volatility's up a little bit, which we need a market correction, for God's sakes. You can't go up all the time. Bond yields it's still at the 10-year is moving like I couldn't believe. Last few years it has been. We're at a 1.48 right now, essentially. So we're at that 1.5% market, and if they pass this bill, you're going to see a little bit of a spike on there. It depends on what the Fed does too. So here's the thing: a lot of guys, even on my side of things, they're talking about all these economic calamities that are going to happen. It's hard to predict. I don't care who you are. This is why economics is like a voodoo science almost. It's hard to predict all the variables that will occur when these things happen. We can just see, based on principles and certain economic laws, that these things are bad. But like I've talked about, inflation, and people simplify that. Like I said, inflation is a monetary phenomenon. The ramifications of it, like the flu, you have symptoms, and that could be rising prices, that could be lower prices, that could be spikes. Because it's like a sloshing bucket of water. So you have all this excess capital, so it'll go into weird places, and typically you'll see these the assets, capital goods go up first. But now we're seeing. So here's my own personal story. So I was at the store, because now we're seeing these pressures into the consumer side of things, which we haven't seen that in a long time in this country. So I was at the store, and I usually buy like bulk eggs because I eat a lot of eggs. Excuse me. I noticed over the past, because last one I bought maybe a couple weeks ago, and then yesterday I went there, and the prices shot up over $1.30, which equates to roughly a 20% price spike. I noticed it in the ice cream that I buy my daughter. I had like a 10 or what was it? About 15% price spike in that. This is just recently. So these things are starting to make their way through the economy. But then not only that, the monetary phenomenon of inflation occurs, but then when you have these shortages or you have dislocations, because dislocations are caused by this, you have these malinvestments and dislocations in the economy, it exacerbates the price rises. So like you have the ports that are clogged up, so you're not getting supply. Then you have shortages, and it's not all people that don't want to work, because those benefits are gone. It's like there's a lot of people I've seen that want to work, and sometimes they can't work. One, because you have certain mandates, but two, getting all the paperwork in. I've heard people getting paperwork and getting background checks is slowing up processes of hiring. Certain companies aren't willing to take the risk on hiring, even though they need to, because there's these supply chain issues. We've got something completely. If you think the economy is good, you're living under a rock, because the economy is good. You're living under a rock. Because if you just need to open your eyes, I don't care what political aisle you're in, you just open your eyes and see these small little dislocations, and it's not just one thing that caused them. These are foundation has been built over the years. Now you can blame Biden. Yeah, he has exacerbated some of this, but these things have been piled on over the last year. We didn't take our medicine when we had the first bubble in early 2000, and we definitely didn't take it when we had the financial crisis of 2008. In fact, we put this moral contradiction there, where banks are essentially bet on anything, and then they can get bailed out. And if you listen to a guy like Tim Pool, they just came on board with this because they had Robert Murphy when they're talking about the reserve requirements that have been taken out, which I've known about for a while, which is just like let the fox into the hen house completely. So if you didn't know, fractional reserve banking, actually, it is the bulk of money creation. Sure, you have the Federal Reserve and whatnot, but if you think about when you only have how many loans, consumer loans and business loans or whatnot, are done through the regular banking sector, that creates the bulk of the currency that's out there. And what they do is, so you can, let's say you deposit $100 into a bank, right? They only have to keep, well, it used to be keep like $10 of it, and they can lend out the other 90. And then went down to where you can keep like $5 of it, and then they can lend out $95, and so on and so forth. That little cascade keeps going, and you end up creating all this money. And then when you pay off a loan, it destroys it. A lot into it. But anyway, they took those reserve requirements. So essentially, a bank can lend out things that they don't even have a backing with whatever. They can just, if they didn't have any whatsoever constraints, they can just print whatever. But normally in a regular free market system where you'd have to pay for those bad decisions, you'd have a higher reserve requirement, because that's what normal people that had to look at risk would require their banks to at least hold on some of their money. But two, banks would have to look at risk parameters of bets, essentially, or investments they would make in giving out loans, and they'd have to be backed by a certain amount of assets they actually have. Now there's just a psychological constraint, essentially, and they can just do whatever they want. So when you go take out your mortgage, that's not necessarily like you're taking $100,000 to go buy a house, which good luck finding a house right now with that. But hypothetically, you keep a round number. Like, it's not like there's $100,000 that the bank has stashed away that, hey, we're going to transfer this over to such and such bank. In a sense, they don't even have a dollar of that, and they're just writing it in a ledger and then backing it up, saying, oh, well, we can go to the Fed window or whatever, and it's good. It's as good as the person that we're underwriting this for. And if they write it, well, so they don't have any moral, or there's no real risk in the bank taking risks. You know what I mean? So essentially, it's not risk. It's like like they used to say, it was capitalistic profits and socialized losses. Essentially, that's what you have here. The system is it's so hard to explain too, because it's so complex. There's so many variables but you can tell that there's something not right, and all these discongruities in here, these little misallocations here and there. And then when you have things like that, it gets crazy. That's one of the reasons people go to like crypto. But let me tell you this: when it comes to exacerbation of political ideologies, when you have like Biden, who is amplifying these monetary effects, when you have a guy like Trump that was in there, at least, even though he was going down the same road, at least he was more pro-business. And on the supply side of things, you can counteract a little bit of this monetary craziness. Granted, there's still misallocations of capital that are going on, and weird things that will happen, and we're sowing the seeds of destruction. But a lot of this can be mitigated if you let us innovate and create supply, and instead of just shifting those curves around with the monetary system and then constraining the supply side of things. At least you had supply. At least there's still something there. But anyway, that craziness. And the market's it's infuriating. But we go into the debt ceiling. What's going on there? Oh, here's the counter. So I don't know if you remember this. If you followed the markets for a number of years, you remember a guy named Dennis Gartman, right? Dennis Gartman was notoriously a counter indicator for the market. It became a meme and a joke, actually, because he was always on CNBC. He has a newsletter, and I can't believe the guy's still running around, because every time he would say something like, "Oh, this is a top in oil," or whatever, or "This is blah blah," next thing you know, that market, whatever he spoke of, would do the exact opposite. So there's actually a counter indicator, the counter Gartman indicators. I can't remember. I think that's a term. So anything Dennis Gartman come out with, you just do the opposite and you make money. It was crazy. So he came out and said the bull market's ended. So I would like to think the bull market is ended. We go into a corrective phase. But when Dennis Gartman comes out and says the bull market is ended, it makes you want to just go 100% in the market then. Because this guy is crazy. And like I said, you can crash up in an inflationary environment. Some of the things you don't realize, if you look into like old Germany and Venezuela when they inflate, one of the things that happens is that their stock market goes up. Of course, there's oscillations or whatnot, but it tends to happen even if the economy is cratering. Well, anyway, Dennis Gartman comes out and says that, and it's like, well, is it still counter Gartman? Do we still play that indicator? He's been quiet for a while. I can't believe the guy's still around. But anyway, so I don't know if the trend with his counter his calls is still out there or not, or maybe this is one of the calls he makes right. Who knows? But the debt ceiling thing, that's craziness. Like, hopefully they don't raise it. There's a reason why it's there. What's the point of having a debt ceiling if every time we come up against it we just raise it? What is it's this complete symbolic in nature. And in fact, either don't raise it or just get rid of it. We just stop pretending. Let's just accelerate this thing that you're already going to do. It's just like a political theater. Well, it is. That's what it is. There are actors out here, and it's a political theater. What else is going on? Oh, I mean, it's the port backup was another thing in the economic thing. I think it's over a month. It's like in the port of Los Angeles or something. Oh. With regard to that, now we look at what is happening in oil markets. All right, the oil market is spiking today. It has been spiking. It's over $78. It's up 3% today. Incredible. And I don't know, it's, there's an output hike, but I don't know what is going on there. Besides, I know it's monetarily, and then you also have the supply constraints. Go back to that, the exacerbation of this kind of thing. We have these assets here in this country. We have them in Alaska. We have drillers. They're afraid to go in there and invest the money. They're afraid of this, and they can't get the leases. We can supply ourselves. And even if you're an environmental, I'm a conservationist. Yes, I don't want them drilling like they did in North Dakota. It's crazy over there if you've ever been. I want more of a Colorado model when they were drilling, where you have companies that come in and like reseed the pads even while they're producing. And then, it's more conducive to the animal. It's more friendly on the environment. In fact, some of those grassy areas in Colorado are awesome hunting because they've replanted native grasses, and a lot of the elk and stuff come down and they feed on those pads. And sometimes, the area there is warm, and if they do it right, you can make it more friendly and then let the market dictate when you want to go completely on to an electric thing. But if you're going to go on electric, we need to produce electricity if you want clean hydroelectric stuff, which nobody wants to build dams anymore. But I digress a little bit on there. But anyway, so yeah, North Dakota got crazy. That's a bad example of how to conduct drilling operations. So, but there's a way we can drill and not make this huge environment impact, but we can also supply our own energy for at least the time being as we add new technologies come in and become more economically viable. But simply allowing the price to spike again and hurting already devastated lower income person, or just American in general, because I don't want to disparage anybody, but it hurts most everybody when you have oil prices. It hurts everybody in the stores because you're transporting this stuff. It hurts everybody when they're gas pumps at the gas pump. But it's incredible that we have so much technology and drilling space and so much supply that we're allowing this to happen. And it seems like there's crickets up there when it comes to this, besides from one side of the aisle. So, and those are good paying jobs. I mean, they gradually went down. They used to be super good paying jobs in the oil field, and they kind of went down as technology increased. And a lot of people were going after this. So, we got a labor market that was getting more and more people interested in that kind of job at a certain time, but still paid good, man. You go out there and make 70, 80 grand and get a lot of time off too. Some of those guys, you get on a two week off rotation. It was pretty awesome. Or you get on a 21/7, work 21 days, get a whole week off every month. Beats the hell out of a 9 to 5 job. Plus, I mean, for me, I liked it. It was like, yeah, it's cold as hell up there in North Dakota and Montana and all that, but in the wintertime, and it sucked working out there. But at a different sense, it's like, man, it was beautiful. It was nice to be out there. Granted, you look like a Michelin man walking outside. You can't be outside for too long, otherwise you can get a frostbite. But I just hate to see all this devastation in that sector, and just what's going on in general. There's so much to go after in what's going on, just economically, which I believe has ramifications socially, but we won't even get into that too much. We might do that some other time. Like the social ramifications of economic collapse. It's not exactly, economic collapse isn't exactly a Mad Max situation. You can look at other countries and other empires that have had an economic collapse. I mean, people still exist. The economy, in a sense, still works because people are still producing and need stuff. But the good times and the wealth creation that we've experienced is not the same. But it's interesting to see what China's doing with regard to what their that Evergrande bankruptcy essentially, and how their impact. Another thing is we have, and this is the last thing I'll touch on because I thought it was kind of interesting. There was an article about a plane that was captured on film, a new, it looked like experimental stealth jet. And I knew there were weird things out there, but I haven't seen anything. And it was like somebody made a comment that the Chinese are already trying to copy it, probably off of a 10-second video, which is probably true. And you think about the corrupt tendency, or the massive corruption right now in all levels of government, essentially. I wouldn't put it past the Chinese actually have the information already before it even gets to us. Like, they have enough money to throw around and enough people that are willing to sell out at anybody. Because as you collapse the monetary system and make it harder for people to make a living, people get more desperate. And since you've destroyed us culturally, in a sense, this country's been completely devastated culturally. It's done. They have less loyalty to the ideas of this, so they're willing to just sell themselves out. And I think that I wouldn't be surprised if China already has a lot of. Now, will they be able to manufacture it? I don't know, but they already probably have a great deal of intel on this jet before we even know about it. I know that was kind of a sense of what happened with the the F-22 and the F-35. Is that China was able to counter those with certain their own stealth technology, which is probably largely based off of ours. And who's to say that some of these companies who are hedging their bets on the destruction of this empire itself would not just give them, or in backhanded deals, give them some of the technology that's to make a profit or to hedge their own existence later on. I mean, I wouldn't put it past. I just have that feeling. Do I have anything to back it up? I don't really know, besides the outcome of seeing some of the Chinese military equipment. But it doesn't look good for us, man. It doesn't look good for us all. But I'm going to end it here, and we'll talk again probably tomorrow. And then I got to go on another trip, and then I'll be back. We'll do some more of these and get into some deep dives on certain things. But anyway, talk to you later.